Imagine for a moment a child sitting under the dim glow of a flickering candle. He has no internet, no classroom, no polished desk, but he has a book, just one book. And in that moment, that child isn't just reading words on a page, he's unlocking worlds, stretching his imagination beyond the limits of his village, reaching into the minds of people he's never met, from places he's never seen. That's education, not a test, not a degree, but a bridge to something greater. We talk about blessings in life. We list things like health, love, and opportunity, but rarely do we stop and recognize that one of the most powerful blessings we'll ever receive is education, not because it guarantees success, not because it checks a box for society, but because it gives us access to becoming more than we were yesterday. Education isn't always loud. It doesn't always come in grand buildings or prestigious titles. Sometimes it's a quiet conversation with a mentor, a late night realization in the pages of a forgotten book, a moment when a question finally opens a new path in the mind, but somewhere along the way, we stopped seeing it as a gift. We started seeing it as a burden, a system, a chore, a requirement. We forgot that education was once something people fought for, something that in some corners of the world people still fight for. Just the right to learn, just the chance to read, just the ability to ask a question and hear an answer. So if you're listening to this right now, if you have ever had the privilege of learning even once, you've already received one of the rarest, most powerful blessings life has to offer. Think of your mind as a living system, constantly evolving a biological supercomputer, and education. It's the software that upgrades that system. Every fact you learn, every idea you wrestle with, every concept you internalize, it's a patch, a program, a new layer of capability added to your operating system. But unlike machines, our minds don't just process, they transform. They dream, they imagine, and when education is done right, it doesn't just inform you, it reshapes you. From the moment we're born, we start learning. But true education, the kind that elevates humanity, doesn't just fill our heads with knowledge. It rewires our entire view of reality. It changes what we believe is possible. It gives us new tools to solve problems we once thought were impossible. If you zoom out and look at history, every leap forward from the invention of the printing press to the development of the internet wasn't just about technology. It was about how education adapted to those tools. How knowledge spread faster, wider, deeper. How each generation became more capable because of the insights passed down to them. That's the true miracle. Education is humanity's most scalable form of evolution. One teacher can change hundreds of lives. One idea can ripple through a generation. One discovery, when taught, can transform the way an entire civilization thinks and operates. We often talk about intelligence as if it's fixed. But it's not. Intelligence expands with exposure, with curiosity, with guidance. Education takes raw potential and sculpts it into progress. It takes questions and turns them into solutions. It's how we leap from instinct to insight. So when you think of education, don't reduce it to a classroom or a curriculum. See it for what it truly is, a living, breathing engine of transformation. The most powerful force we have for reprogramming not just our individual lives, but our collective future. You are being educated every single day, whether you realize it or not, and most of it isn't happening in a classroom. It's not coming from a textbook. It's not measured by grades or diplomas. It's happening in the background, silently shaping your beliefs, your habits, your reactions, your identity. This is what we call the hidden curriculum of life. Every conversation you have, every video you watch, every choice you make, it teaches you something. The people you surround yourself with, the media you consume, the stories you repeat in your head, all of it is education. The only question is, what is it teaching you? Are you becoming more curious or more cynical? More open or more closed? Are you learning how to think or just what to think? There's a dangerous myth that learning ends when school ends, that once you graduate you're done. But that idea is not just false, it's destructive. Because it hands over the steering wheel of your mind to outside forces. And the less conscious you are of what's educating you, the more power you give away. Education is not just a system, it's an environment. It's a rhythm, it's a choice. You are constantly being shaped either by design or by default. Some people intentionally seek wisdom. They read, explore, ask questions, push boundaries. Others passively absorb whatever flows their way. And in doing so, they become a product of their surroundings instead of a steward of their own evolution. So here's the deeper truth. You are the architect of your learning. Every day is a classroom. Life is the teacher, and whether you realize it or not, something is always being written on the chalkboard of your mind, which means it's time to ask who's doing the writing, and are you awake enough to hold the pen yourself? There's a quiet kind of power that lives in those who teach. Not just teachers in classrooms, but mentors, guides, parents, elders. The people who pour their time, their energy, their experiences into shaping others. They're the architects of tomorrow, and the strange thing is, they often never see the buildings they help construct. You see, education is legacy in motion. When someone shares knowledge with you, they're not just giving you information, they're passing on pieces of themselves. Their mistakes, their breakthroughs, their way of seeing the world, and in that transfer, they become more than just individuals, they become bridges to the future. Think about this. Every great innovation, every piece of wisdom, every transformative moment in history started with someone learning something new, and that spark was almost always ignited by another human being who decided to share what they knew. A single teacher, a single mentor, can change the direction of hundreds, even thousands of lives. But the ripple doesn't stop there. Because those students go on to teach others, they create, they lead, they build, and in that way, the influence of one person echoes across time, long after they're gone. There's something deeply human about this need to pass on knowledge. It's older than books, older than schools. In fact, it might be one of the most ancient instincts we have, to ensure the next generation is wiser, stronger, more prepared than we were, and yet, we often overlook this force. We undervalue our educators. We forget that behind every inventor, every leader, every artist, there was someone who taught them how to think, how to question, how to imagine. So the question becomes, who taught you? Who lit your fire? And even more importantly, who are you teaching? Because whether you know it or not, you're already part of someone else's education, and that might just be the most sacred responsibility we ever carry. ChatGPT said, "There's a moment, a magical moment, when education and imagination collide, when learning stops being a chore and becomes a catalyst. It's the moment when a child stops memorizing answers and starts asking their own questions. When a student stops studying just to pass and starts learning to create. That's when education becomes something entirely different. It becomes a launchpad for human potential. We are entering an age where information is no longer rare. It's everywhere, knowledge is on demand, but the future doesn't belong to those who simply know. It belongs to those who can imagine what to do with what they know. Creativity is the new superpower, and when it's paired with deep, intentional education, the results are world-changing. Imagine learning environments where a child in a remote village has the same access to tools and mentors as a student in the best school in the world. Imagine lessons that adapt to your curiosity, to your emotions, to the rhythm of your thinking. Imagine virtual reality experiences that let you walk through ancient civilizations or simulate future worlds. This isn't science fiction, it's the emerging reality. The question isn't can we build this future, it's will we? And more importantly, will we have the wisdom to design education systems that honor both the data and the dream? Because imagination without education is scattered, and education without imagination is sterile. But together, they are unstoppable. They're how we move from possibility to progress, from what is to what could be. Education is no longer just about survival. It's about exploration, about unlocking the unknown. It's about producing the kind of minds that not only respond to the future but invent it. So as we stand at the edge of this next chapter, we must ask ourselves, are we preparing students to replicate the past or to reinvent the future? Because the power isn't in just teaching them what we know, it's in helping them imagine what we haven't even discovered yet. Picture 3 generations: a grandfather who never learned to read, a father who taught himself under the dim light of a street lamp, and a child now learning quantum physics from a tablet. 3 lives, 1 thread. That thread is education. It's not just knowledge passed down. It's resilience, dreams, and identity carried across time. Education is a bridge not just between people and ideas, but between generations. It's how wisdom survives war. It's how language outlasts borders. It's how cultures continue to breathe even when they're under threat. Every generation learns from the last, but it's not just the facts they carry, it's the meaning behind them. The stories, the scars, the triumphs, that's what education preserves. Think about what your grandparents knew that you never learned. Think about what you know now that your children might forget if you never teach it. That's the fragile, powerful beauty of education. It lives as long as we pass it on, and it's not always formal. Sometimes it's a mother teaching her daughter how to survive in a world that doesn't listen. Sometimes it's a grandfather passing on a tradition that isn't written in any book. Sometimes it's just a phrase, one sentence that becomes a compass for life. This is why education matters so deeply, because it roots us in something bigger than ourselves. It tells us that we came from somewhere and that we're going somewhere. It makes sure the sacrifices of the past weren't in vain, and that the dreams of the future have something solid to stand on. So when you learn, you're not just learning for you, you're learning for everyone who came before you, and everyone who comes after. You become a living bridge, a link in a chain, a continuation of a story still being written. And maybe, just maybe, that's one of the most sacred roles a human being can ever play. And now, here you are standing in this moment, with all the knowledge that's ever been discovered just a click away. And yet, the most important question remains, will you choose to keep learning? Because education isn't a phase of life, it's the essence of it. It's not just for children, or students, or professionals. It's for anyone who still has questions, for anyone who believes there's more to become, for anyone who refuses to be finished. The truth is, the day you stop learning is the day you stop growing, and the day you stop growing is the day you start slowly disappearing from your own life. So become a student again, be a beginner again. Sit at the feet of wisdom, even if that wisdom comes from unexpected places, a stranger, a setback, a child. Let the world teach you, let your curiosity guide you, and never let the spark of wonder fade, because that is what keeps your spirit alive. You don't need a formal class to keep evolving. You need hunger. You need humility. You need the courage to admit that there's more you don't know than you do, and that's not a weakness. It's a gift. It's permission to stay open, to keep stretching, to keep building the future not just for yourself, but for everyone around you. So yes, education is one of the blessings of life, but like every blessing, it means nothing unless you receive it, unless you use it, unless you pass it on. The world doesn't need more people who think they've figured it all out. The world needs more students, more seekers, more visionaries, and maybe, just maybe,